Radio. We go now to Washington, D.C. United States House of Representatives member Randy Forbes is with us from Virginia. And Congressman Forbes, welcome back to our program.
Well, Tim, it's always great to be with you. Glad to be with you and Jim today. And also appreciate some of those cooler temperatures, especially down in Mississippi. I'm going to be traveling down there in a couple of weeks because my grandbabies live down there. So I hope it's nice and comfortable when I get down there.
Man, me too. Anything in the mid-80s in the South and
no humidity.
No humidity is a blessing. Now, what's the weather like in Washington, by the way, today?
Well, it's cooler up here, a little overcast. We've been having kind of bouts with rain every day, but it's a big difference today even than yesterday when the humidity was just, like Jim was saying, it was like a sauna, almost out there and really warm.
Well, talk about the employer mandate, having to do with Obamacare for a minute, because we understand. First of all, was this what was postponed the other day by the Obama administration?
It was one of the things. They have a series of things because, Tim, as you know, this was a incredibly poorly drafted piece of legislation. Substantively, it almost has to crumble under its own weight because it just can't withstand, the enormous problems that it is creating. And one of the big ones was this employer mandate, which is requiring employers to have all of this insurance and to comply with this law. And it is going to force many employers just to stop insuring their employees altogether, just pay a penalty. Secondly, though, it is going to cost a lot of jobs. Some estimates have been as many as 3.5 million jobs. So the administration came in finally realizing how catastrophic this was going to be, and it kicked the can down the road a year. There are two problems with that. Kicking the can down the road is not far enough. They need to just get rid of the health care bill altogether. But the second thing is, this is an administration that just doesn't care about the law, and they don't have the authority to just come in and take a law and just say when they're going to rewrite it and when they're going to enforce it and when they're not, and that seems to be what they're doing both with domestic laws and with their foreign policy now.
Well, Congressman Forbes, one of the things that I've noticed, and in fact there's a new story out today where an appeals court in D.C. has overruled or decided to let something that the president didn't want to go ahead with the Energy Department, and that revolves the Nevada Yucca Mountains nuclear plant. But they're saying the same type thing could be applied to the Obamacare because, and I quote from the article, says the president may not decline to follow a statutory mandate or prohibition simply because of policy objections. And that's basically what this is. This is a signed law of the land that he's deciding he just wants to go through and postpone parts of.
Jim, you're 100% correct. I think one of the enormous problems with this health care law, and the three of us could spend a long time talking about all the problems with it, but one of the enormous problems is no one in this country knows all of the ramifications, knows what the rules are, where they are. So here's another situation where they're, again, just making a unilateral decision, kicking the can down the road. A court could come back in later, just like you mentioned, and said, wait a minute, you can't do it. Well, then where are all these employers going to be? They have no credibility right now. They have no predictability in what they're doing on health insurance. And, again, as we mentioned at the outset, this is just one of the things they're doing. They've now pushed the caps down the road as well, which was a huge marquee that they used to talk about this in the first place when they were trying to get it passed. So I think this is a bill that's self-destructing before our eyes.
We're talking to Congressman Randy Forbes from Virginia. He works in the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C., about the situation with Obamacare and what's happening with these delays that the Obama administration has decided to put into place in implementing their own law that they passed. I think they know, as Congressman Forbes said, this is a disaster, and are a train wreck, as one Democrat senator called it, waiting to happen. It's about to happen, and so they're wanting to push back the consequences, the pain, the suffering, the expense beyond the 2014 midterm congressional election, so that it can do at least amount of damage to the Democrat Party as possible. That's the reason. That and the fact that they don't know how this thing works. I'm talking about the people who are supposed to implement it. Let me say one other thing about this. Folks, be clear. I want you to understand something, and I'm not trying to talk down to our listeners or be too elementary here, but this is a critical issue that's at stake, and I don't know how it's going to be resolved, if it's even going to be challenged, and maybe Congressman Forbes can tell us how it could be challenged. Folks, we have a lawmaking process, in your state legislatures, wherever you may live, and then it's the same way at a national level.
Mm-hmm.
The laws are drafted in the House of Representatives, the Senate. They're worked out together between those two bodies, and then they're sent to the President of the United States for either his signature or his veto. That's his choice. Okay, in this case, the President signed Obamacare into law. Obviously, it's his name on this. It was ramrodded through the Congress on a party line vote. The Democrats supported Obamacare. The Republicans opposed it. And so it was, but the Democrats had the majority. They signed it into law, and there were dates attached to when these, as there are with all laws, when they're supposed to go into effect. Well, the date of the implementation of the law is part of the law itself. It's statutory. So you can't. If you're going to change the law, the date on implementation, the president need to recommend that to Congress. Congress goes in and sets a new date for implementation, or thereby amending the law. What the president has done is said, I'm king. I decide when we impose this law. If I want to get the white ink out and change the law date and implementation, I'll do it myself. I don't need Congress. So while it may be a good thing that we postpone the implementation, that may be a good thing. The principle here is, Randy, that the president views himself as king. He can do whatever he wants to, whenever he wants to.
Well, Tim, one of the things that you and Jim and I realize, I think sometimes, though, some Americans either take this for granted or they kind of think we're just talking about historical principles and documents, but it's that fundamental rule of law that's at stake. And the reason that's so important is because people can get mad at you or mad at me. They can do all kinds of things, but that law is there to say it's the law of the land, and it's greater than the king, it's greater than the president, it's greater than Congress, and it's there to protect us, whether it's protecting our property or our rights or whatever it's doing. This is an administration that has clearly adopted the principle that the end justifies the means, and they have discarded the rule of law, whether it was them refusing to enforce the Defense of Marriage Act, whether it is them just refusing to enforce immigration laws, or now in refusing to enforce the own provisions of their health care law. And when you do that, it's more than just saying we're taking a provision of a health care law. It is absolutely throwing out the rule of law so it becomes meaningless across the country.
I know Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky was talking about this yesterday. So hopefully, somebody can do something to stop President Obama from just writing his own laws, and putting his own dates on things, or, as I say, white inking a law without congressional approval. Congressman, you want to comment on that?
No, I was just going to say, and I agree with you, because what it leads to is this kind of culture of arrogance we're seeing with the Internal Revenue Service, with the NSA, all across the board. So it has huge ramifications.
What is your website? Where can people read what you're doing there in Washington?
They can just go to randyforbes.com, and it'll go right to all of the information. And we try not to editorialize, but they can pull facts and stuff out and make their own conclusions.
forbes.house.gov. Thank you, Randy.
That's right.
Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, guys. Y'all have a good day.
Thanks, sir. God bless.
That's Congressman Randy Forbes of Virginia, and he is one of the good guys on Capitol Hill there, telling us what's happening with the latest on Obamacare. and we will follow this story. But folks, somebody hopefully will challenge the president in court if need be, because he can't. What if he'd have said, "I want to speed up the implementation of the law"?
Yeah, and that's one of the things this Judge Kavanaugh said in the statement, is that there is no overstatement to say that our constitutional system of separation of powers would be significantly altered if we were to allow executive and independent agencies to disregard federal law in the manner asserted in this case by the Nuclear Commission. But the commission is simply defying a law enacted by Congress without any legal basis. And that's the same thing the judge said again about Obamacare, is that the president is simply disregarding these laws without a legal basis. He has nothing to stand on.
No, he just says, "I'm going to delay it because I want to do something about it."
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah. Come on, try me.
So anyway, you want to welcome our next guest?
I will.